Are you familiar with what's going on with Patreon? With
no, what's that?
There's like,
and that's like the
bunch
podcast pay form thing, or you can pay for shit with Patreon, or
well, yeah, you can pay for things, but it's not necessarily just for podcasts. But people do use it for podcasts. But they use it for many things.
Okay.
But there's this guy. His name is Carl Benjamin, and he goes by the name of Sargon of Akkad, and he considers himself a what you call a classic British liberal, which is leans more conservative than our idea of what a liberal is. But essentially, it's more of a libertarian toward. How would you describe a classic British liberal? Like, what would be the definite? Like, Google that.
The first of their name would be Carl Benjamin. I mean, that's a strong name.
Well, Sargon of Akkad is his screen name, and he has a YouTube channel, and he said something on a podcast, not even his own. He was a guest on another channel. And he said something about white supremacists. He was talking about these white supremacists that are acting up and doing all these horrible things. And he said, and it's a poorly formed thought, but what he essentially said was, you guys are being niggers.
Oh, my God.
Says you act like white niggers. This is his word.
Jesus.
See, this is what he's saying. You're acting like a bunch of niggers, just so you know, you act like white niggers. I'm sorry if you heard that word and it's offending you right now, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just reading. Said, exactly how you describe black people acting is the impression I get dealing with the alt-right. I'm just not in the mood to deal with this kind of disrespect. So that's it's a very poorly thought out way of expressing himself. That's what I'm thinking. I'm reading this, and I think also sometimes people like using that word to shock. Yeah. And they think they can get away with it. And, when you're using it.
What's the context of this?
But he also said here, look, you carry on, but you don't expect me to have a debate with one of your faggots. Like, why would I bother? Okay, now that is more egregious. Right. Because that is, and if we're just dealing with censoring words, he's not using that saying you're acting like the way you call gay people. Right. He's not saying that. He's like calling someone a gay slur. And then he's saying it again and again. So this was just what they had decided to use. Now, I don't agree with any of these things he said. When I'm reading this, I'm like, these are poorly thought out arguments. This is a poorly thought out sentence. It's not just stop scrolling there for a second. Put that back up. It's not well thought out.
Not at all.
It's not good. So but this has nothing to do with his Patreon page. This doesn't even have to do with his channel. This is something, he made this comment as a part of a longer, wide-ranging interview with a YouTuber named Michelle Catlin. And you can watch the full interview on this. It says, chatting with Sargon of Akkad about the liberalist community. So he, it was free flowing, and he said a bunch of really stupid things. But what he was trying to say is that these people are behaving exactly the way they do when they try to say racist things about black people. Yeah. Essentially, they're behaving exactly the way they're describing race in a racist way. 100%. Black people. Yeah. It's just not well thought out.
This guy needs a class in how to fucking be articulate. Jesus Christ.
But that's what I'm getting from this. So Patreon decided to remove him because of that. And there's many people that feel like that's not exactly why they did it, that they were looking for an excuse, and it's really because of his anti-liberal bias. So a lot of people are disgusted by the idea that Patreon is now censoring voices and deciding who should or should not be able to receive donations from their fans based on their own personal political biases. So this is the argument now. And it's an interesting thing that's popped up because people like Sam Harris, who is very left, he gets accused of being alt-right, which is kind of hilarious, but he's very progressive, and he's a public intellectual, and he's decided that this is a moment where he is going to pull his Patreon account down because he doesn't like the way they are choosing to censor people. and deplatform people based entirely on something that has nothing to do with anything he's done on their platform, and has something to do with something that was out there on another channel. So it's one of those weird little battleground situations.
But do you think like that Patreon's a private enterprise, right?
Yes.
So they can do whatever the fuck they want, no?
Essentially, they can and did. So then people can decide that they don't want to deal with Patreon because Patreon doesn't support free speech. So because free speech, the argument would go that free speech is not just supporting speech that you agree with.
Right.
True free speech is letting people express themselves.
Right.
Now, the way he expressed himself there, not very good. Clumsy.
Right.
Right?
Heavy. That's an understatement. Yeah.
Like, your thoughts on it? You've never seen this before.
No.
What are your thoughts on it?
I'm like, dude, I mean, it's such a, that choice of words is such a way to just, if I'm person reading that, I'm like, my eye goes, you said what? You can't, like, it's such an offensive word where you can't even go there. It immediately distracts from the point that you're trying to make. So
that's a good way of putting it.
You know, it's such like a, you need like, I don't think that guy, I don't know if he's racist or not, but like,
I don't think he is.
But your immediate reaction is like, this guy, you can't do that. It's like you have fundamentally destroyed whatever point you were trying to make because of your choice. It's like you could be trying to save, I can't think of the analogy now, but like it's such a distracting choice of words.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like,
he could have said, and by the way, like all conversations, including this one, right? Like, I'm trying to formulate these opinions on the fly, so are you.
Yeah.
That was what he was doing on the fly. I don't think this is anything he prepared. So I think... Could you imagine?
Damn, dog. You mean that wasn't vetted?
Oh, dude, he's gone over that with a fucking highlighter. These are the key points he wants to hit on.
There's been a few websites. I don't know. I was trying to look up the ones exactly, but I know, for instance, on Twitch in the last year, they've changed things on the terms of service that kind of what you do broadly affects what you do on anyone's account.
The problem with that, what you're just saying right now, is the guy who's the CEO of Patreon actually went on Dave Rubin's show, The Rubin Report, and said that they're only concerned with things that happen on Patreon, and that's what they focus on. Then they changed that after this, because here's the problem. Like, I see their point with this particular thing that this guy said. I see how they find that offensive, and if that becomes a thing that he does more than once, and becomes a thing that he uses that all the time, and uses that kind of language in that context a lot, it's like, this is not. It's clunky. It's not a wise choice of words. It's sloppy, and it's kind of lazy, right? And also, it's kind of racist. Yeah. But why is it racist? Well, it's racist because what he's doing is attacking people who are racists by saying, and he could have done it this way, right? He could have said, you people rally on about black people and call them this, and you say they're doing that. This is what you do. Right. You are exactly what you're. The only thing that's missing is that you don't have the right pigment to receive your own hate, your own self-hate. Right. But you're doing the very things that you in a racist way accuse black people of doing. It's stupid. But it's the way to combat that. When you start censoring people and taking away their ability to make a living by expressing themselves, I just don't think that's the way to go, because you're just going to receive backlash, and
that's the thing. It's one of those. That's one of those instances where it's like, you've said a trigger word that is clearly a trigger word, and what you just said is the way he should have said what he wanted to say.
Right. In hindsight, if you gave him an opportunity, like you say, "Hey, Carl, here's a time machine. Right. Go back right before you said that and say it again." What?
I was going to say, on Patreon, though, like I'm reading their stance on it. As a website, they don't host anything. So like, to say that it's something that's happening on Patreon. No, but they do host
blogs. Like, Jordan Peterson wrote a blog on Patreon.
But that's what most of their content is links from other websites. Yes. So I feel like they have to take into account what you're creating as a creator anywhere. almost.
Right. This isn't even him as a creator, though. This was him, a guest on someone else's show. So this is not something that's his own content that he put out.
Their stance is that he collaborates with other creators, and this would be considered a collaboration.
Yeah.
As a YouTube creator, I guess.
I see that point. I do not think that it's a wise thing to censor him, though. Do you?
Get that motherfucker a PR coach, dog. Jesus Christ.
At the very least, maybe if this is the first stance, which I think they're saying it is, definitely a warning or maybe a.
But here's the thing, man. Here's the thing.
Temporary ban. Maybe.
But here's the thing. What he does is he's a commentator. He sees life and he talks about it. And I've listened to a lot of his stuff, and it's very good. He's a smart man. A lot of it's very good. This is not very good. So the right way when it comes to these things is let the people who contribute to his Patreon decide that they don't like what he's doing, so they're no longer going to subscribe. That's the correct use of the platform.
Right.
The platform exists because people who are fans are able to contribute. That I say, Nimesh, I really like what you do. I'm going to send you $100 every month. And if someone wants to do that, they can do that. And there's a lot of people that do that. When you say something that makes them offended, that makes them realize you're sloppy with your words, that makes them feel like you're a fool, they go, you know what? I'm not sending that fucking guy money anymore.
Yeah, let the marketplace talk in that sense.
And then they pull back. If he lost 30% of his market because of that, and then a bunch of blogs are written about how stupid what he said was, that's the correct response.
Correct.
I think. I don't think but the problem with pulling out is then guys like Sam Harris are pulling out, and they've lost somewhere around 20% of all their Patreon accounts because of this.
Oh, shit.
Because there's been a backlash. And by the way, a backlash that's primarily coming from people who don't agree with what that guy said, but do agree that it's a very slippery slope to start censoring people.
That's a good moral stance to take.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like I forget which political figure said it. It's like, I do not agree with what you're saying, but I will defend
fight to the death for your ability to say it. Yes. I think it's important because the only way that ideas get worked out is through discussion. And as soon as you silence voices, then you no longer have that discussion. Now, to YouTube's credit, he's still up on YouTube, okay? Because this was a talk that he had that's available on YouTube. You can listen to it on YouTube. He still has his YouTube account, and he's still able to